Comparison of neuronal networks is ideological classification with thereof in neurobiology. Guys have found analogy quite close to what you have described right now. It's called the four basic neuronal networks. However, they are called there slightly differently. Emotions network goes at number 3, or how to use primitive intuition. This is very similar to your description of the first network. Which knowledge field has this? It's neurobiology, neuroscience. This is not cybernetics. It includes cybernetics also. Multi-skilled scientists work in neuroscience, as usual. The second network is pleasure. This is just more conscious existence with the aim of providing pleasure. This is the second development stage. Further comes the third type. It is the control network, which is responsible for intentions, for prediction, for goal setting, and the own goals managing, meaning this is even more conscious living levels. And the fourth type has a small discrepancy. It says here that this is the network of passive regime, that this is that kind of network which usually function at the instant of a person's kind of not thinking. This is sort of passive regime. But it says here that it is responsible for transcendence, that is, journey beyond common perception. This is basically what I have said. Yes, there's rather high coincidence. It is called distributed neuronal networks, meaning those networks which combine various brain parts. There are up to 15 networks. Why have we stuck with this? Because such functionality can help mostly to understand this network's амплиативность-деплиативность degree. Also, we would really love to know in which regime these networks function. Do they work synchronously, let's say, as cores in the processor? No, depending on the call request. It depends on the stimulus, which goes to the perception system focus dynamics. Each of these systems reacts independently. Ambivalent situations occur because of that. Suppose a network activated by orbital frontal dorsolateral cortex chooses some solution versions, though lateral and ventromedial cortex sufficient activity allows the other solution versions to come to mind. And one should choose here what is more profitable, what is more advantageous. Our focus dynamics growth happens just at the interface of these conflict manifestations and these contradictions. It's called collision in cybernetics. When two flows clash, there is a rule to resolve this collision, but the rules are identified in cybernetics, which define protoformic solutions of this collision. In this case, since all four networks have been activated simultaneously, relatively speaking, then usually this doesn't happen. When the fourth network has been developed enough, which is the most ampliative among all others, then the energy potential for manifesting the first and the second networks decreases drastically. Energy potential resources redistribution occur. To develop the fourth network, very strong mental efforts are needed. Besides, they should be permanent. This focus dynamics is stabilized in completely different realization levels than levels peculiar to realization of the more depliative networks, the initial two ones. And the brain works in such a way that it provides higher activity, meaning if some abstract thinking, intuitive intellect mostly prevail in the individual's focus dynamics, Then, during this period, energy supply comes from these networks mostly. And when some call request takes place, on which this individual could earlier answer rather sharply, roughly, and energetically, the reaction will be much weaker, sufficiently weaker, in the case of developed third, fourth neuronal networks types during entry of the signal of the same intensity. Are coinciding or different synapses activated in each of these networks? Yes, of course. Synapses could belong simultaneously to these and those networks. It is logical to assume that even if an individual is hyperdeveloped and their fourth network is systematically activated, then the neurons, which refer to the less evolutionally developed networks, to the previous ones, will be in fact systematically deactivated. The neurotransmitter's potential will accumulate, but their excitability threshold decreases. Yes, their excitability threshold decreases at that, but this will include their usage. That is, in any case, these neuron networks, the three previous ones, less developed, will be activated systematically somehow. Excessive activity of the fourth neuronal network can lead to some functions destabilization, which are based on the neuronal network's second type activity. These are more primitive neuronal networks, which are related to motor activity, movements coordination, and so on. That's where various dissonances of the organism functions come from. Take the same Stephen Hawking, when the brain constantly works on the particular levels and physiology is not able to implement correspondingly the own desires, intentions, and so on. But here, the organism functions violation took place in the form of the genome qualitative mutation, meaning there was some external reason. But usually, such inconsistency can happen to many people, in particular via motoricity. A person which intensively examines, for example, Iissiidiology or something else, is completely involved in this process. And suddenly they start to make some strong physical efforts. But neurons, those chains which remembered all this, have died. Basically, synapses have been cancelled due to the fact that those neurons have died, annihilated, disappeared, and new neurons don't remember this information, meaning they are excluded from these synapses. It turns out that the neuronal chain through which some physical movements are accomplished influences discontinuously. For example, one should make some movement which was common earlier or something else. That is, a part of synapses is excluded there out of the total chain. Cerebellum creators are not capable of filling all this gap. One should activate some moving functions to do that. In other words, I encourage you, during immersion into the high amplitude thinking activity on Iissiidiology study, not to forget about your physical exercises, about the importance of moving, because synapses fallout occurs during motor activity realization. This can provoke diverse unpleasant phenomena known as supposedly tremor and so on. right up to mutations at the level of Parkinson's disease.